He walked into a blind date expecting small talk and coffee. But when he saw the wheelchair, his heart froze. What the woman told him next didn't just change the date. It shattered everything he believed about love, loss, and second chances. Stay till the end, because this story will break you, then heal you. He hadn't been on a date in 4 years. Not since the night the hospital monitor went flat and his entire life folded in on itself like a cheap chair. Since then, life wasn't about romance or second chances. It was about packed lunches, night terrors, school runs, and pretending you weren't lonely in front of a 7-year-old boy who still asked when mommy was coming home. Ethan Cole didn't believe in setups, blind dates, or surprises. Which made it all the more cruel that the one time he said yes, it was all a lie. It started with his sister. "You need to get out," Laura had said over the phone, her voice overly cheerful in a way that instantly raised suspicion. "Just one coffee. 1 hour. If it's terrible, you leave." "I don't have time," Ethan replied, pinning his son's superhero drawing to the fridge. "I've got Noah, work, bills. You have a babysitter. You have clean clothes. And you have a pulse," she cut in. That's enough. He should have hung up. Instead, 2 days later, he found himself standing outside a quiet cafe downtown, adjusting a jacket he hadn't worn since his wife was still alive. The place was warm, softly lit, the kind of spot meant for people who still believed in romance. He already felt stupid. His sister had shown him a picture. A smiling woman, mid-30s, warm eyes, dark hair tucked behind one ear. "Her name's Claire," Laura had said. "She's kind, funny, been through a lot." That should have been the first warning. Ethan stepped inside, scanning the room. Couples murmured over coffee. A barista laughed. Then he saw her. She was sitting alone near the window. And she was in a wheelchair. For a moment, his brain refused to process it. Then the realization hit him like a punch to the chest. His sister had lied. Claire noticed him at the same time. Their eyes met, and something shifted in her expression, recognition, followed by resignation. Like this wasn't the first time this moment had gone wrong. Ethan froze. Every instinct screamed to turn around. Not because of the wheelchair, God, no, but because he hadn't been prepared. He hadn't been given the chance to decide if he was strong enough for this. His life already felt like it was held together by duct tape and stubbornness. She watched him stand there, clearly struggling. Finally, she spoke first. "You must be Ethan." Her voice was calm, not apologetic, not bitter, just tired. "Yes," he said, forcing his legs to move. "Claire, that's me." He sat down across from her, heart pounding. Up close, he noticed the details the photo hadn't captured. The faint scar near her collarbone. The way her hands rested carefully in her lap. The strength it must take to sit upright for hours without showing discomfort. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. "I didn't know." She gave a small, humorless smile. "I figured." There was an awkward silence. Cups clinked. Somewhere behind the counter, milk steamed. "My sister set this up," he added. "She didn't tell me." "She never does," Claire said quietly. That made him look up. "She's done this before?" he asked. Claire nodded. "People think if they warn you, you won't come. So they take away the choice. They think they're helping." Ethan felt something twist in his chest. "That's not fair." "No," she agreed. "But it's common." He didn't know what to say after that. The waitress came over, breaking the tension. They ordered coffee. Black for him, tea for her. "So," Ethan said after a moment, rubbing his hands together. "You've been through a lot." Claire laughed softly. "That's one way to put it." She didn't elaborate, and he didn't push. Instead, he found himself talking. About Noah. About work. About how mornings were chaos and nights were worse. About the empty side of the bed he never talked about. She listened. Really listened. Not the polite nodding kind, but the kind where someone remembers what you said 10 minutes ago and asks the right question. "You're a good father," she said at one point. He swallowed. I'm just trying not to screw him up. Aren't we all? Something about her made it easier. The guard he'd built brick by brick over years began to crack. Then, halfway through the date, everything changed. Ethan noticed her hand tremble slightly as she reached for her cup. "You okay?" he asked. She hesitated. "I should tell you something," she said. The way she said it, slow, careful, made his stomach drop. "Okay," he replied. She took a breath. "I wasn't always like this." He nodded, unsure where this was going. 5 years ago, I was engaged. I was driving home from work when a drunk driver ran a red light. Her voice didn't shake, but her eyes darkened. I woke up 3 weeks later. My fiancé was dead. My spine was shattered. And the doctor told me I'd never walk again. Ethan felt his throat close. She looked straight at him now. "Do you know what the first thing I asked was?" He shook his head. "I asked who would ever love me now." The words hit him harder than he expected. Because he knew that question. He'd asked it in a hospital hallway, staring at a body that used to be his wife. Claire continued, "People see the chair first. They don't see me. They don't see the woman who still dreams, still wants a family, still gets lonely at night." Her eyes glistened. "They see a burden." Ethan's chest burned. "I don't see a burden," he said without thinking. She smiled sadly. "That's kind. But most men do. They don't stay long enough to prove it." He wanted to say something reassuring. Something strong. But before he could, she said the sentence that broke him completely. "I told your sister not to lie to you," Claire whispered. "I told her if you walked away, it would hurt less than hoping." Ethan felt tears sting his eyes. Because suddenly, he wasn't thinking about wheelchairs or blind dates. He was thinking about how this woman had already prepared herself to be rejected before he even walked through the door. And how unfair life could be to people who had already lost so much. He looked at her, really looked at her. And for the first time in years, his heart did something dangerous. It opened. Ethan didn't know how long they sat there after that. The cafe noise faded into something distant, like the hum of traffic outside a hospital window. Claire looked away first, embarrassed by the silence, embarrassed by her honesty. He could see it in the way her shoulders stiffened, like she was bracing for the moment he'd politely end the date. "I didn't mean to dump all that on you," she said softly. "You didn't sign up for a therapy session. You didn't dump anything," Ethan replied. His voice came out rougher than he intended. "You told the truth." She studied his face, like she was trying to decide whether he meant it. Most men, he realized, probably said nice things and then disappeared. Ghosting must have been easier than admitting fear. "I should probably go," she said after a moment. "This is usually the part where things get uncomfortable." Ethan surprised himself by shaking his head. "No. Stay. Please." The word please felt strange on his tongue. Vulnerable. Claire hesitated. "You're sure?" "I am." Something shifted between them then. Not romance, not yet, but respect. Mutual recognition of two people who'd been knocked flat by life. And were still breathing. They talked longer. About books she loved and movies he hadn't had time to watch. About how she learned to drive again using hand controls, how it terrified her the first time she was alone on the road. About how Ethan still slept with one ear open because Noah sometimes cried out for his mother in the middle of the night. "You don't have to be strong all the time," Claire said gently. Ethan laughed, bitter and tired. "Someone does." When the date ended, it didn't end with excuses or awkward goodbyes. "I'd like to see you again," Ethan said, surprising both of them. Claire's eyes widened just a little. "You would." "Yes," he said firmly. But this time, no lies. A slow smile spread across her face. "Deal." He helped hold the cafe door open as she wheeled herself out, careful not to overstep, careful not to assume. When she drove away, Ethan stood there longer than necessary, watching the taillights disappear. That night, he lay awake staring at the ceiling. He tried to list the reasons it wouldn't work. The logistics. The judgment. The questions Noah might ask. The weight of responsibility. But every excuse felt hollow. Because beneath all of it was something simple and terrifying. He liked her. Their second date was a walk in the park, literally. A smooth, accessible path, autumn leaves crunching under Ethan's shoes. Noah was with the babysitter again, and guilt tugged at him for enjoying himself. Claire noticed. "You keep checking your phone," she said. "Dad reflex," he admitted. "Even when nothing's wrong." She smiled. "That doesn't go away, does it?" "No," he said. "But I wouldn't trade it." They sat by the lake, ducks gliding across the water. Claire tilted her face toward the sun, eyes closed. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. Are you afraid of me?" Her voice was calm, but her hands clenched in her lap. Ethan didn't answer right away. "I was afraid of the unknown," he said honestly. "Of being tricked. Of making the wrong choice again." "Again?" she asked softly. "My wife," he said. The word still hurt. "Cancer. 2 years. By the time we knew, it was already everywhere." "I'm sorry," Claire whispered. "So am I," he replied. "I thought if I loved again, I'd be inviting more pain." She nodded slowly. "Pain doesn't ask for permission." No one had ever said it like that. The weeks that followed felt unreal. They texted. They laughed. They argued lightly about music and movies. Claire met Noah, slowly, carefully, never pushing. Noah was curious at first. Then cautious. "Why doesn't she walk?" he asked one evening, blunt in the way only children could be. Claire didn't flinch. "Because my legs don't work the way they used to. But I still race people in wheelchairs." Noah considered that. "Can you beat my dad?" She grinned. "Absolutely." Ethan watched them, heart full and terrified. But not everyone was kind. At the grocery store, strangers stared. At a restaurant, a man leaned over and whispered to Ethan, "You're a good guy, but that's a lot to take on." As if Claire wasn't sitting right there. Ethan felt rage burn through him. "She's not a burden," he snapped. "She's a person." Claire pretended not to hear, but later that night, she pulled away. "This is why I warned you," she said quietly. "The world doesn't make room for people like me." "I don't care about the world," Ethan replied. "You will," she said. "When it starts affecting your son. Your job. Your peace." The fear he saw in her eyes wasn't self-pity. It was protection. The breaking point came 3 months later. Ethan's sister called him in tears. "I didn't think it would matter," Laura said. "I just wanted you to meet her." "You took away my choice," Ethan replied coldly. "And hers." Claire overheard the argument. That night, she didn't answer his messages. The next day, she asked him to come over. Her apartment was quiet, sunlight streaming through the window. She didn't offer him coffee. "I think we should stop," she said. The words hit him like ice water. "What?" he asked. "Why?" "Because you're slowly sacrificing pieces of your life," she said. "And one day, you'll resent me." "That's not true." "It is," she insisted. "Love doesn't erase reality. It makes it heavier." Ethan felt something crack. "You think I don't already carry weight?" he asked. "You think you're adding to it?" She looked away. "I can't be another thing you have to manage," she whispered. Another loss waiting to happen. He stepped closer, kneeling so they were eye to eye. "Claire," he said, voice shaking. "You didn't break me. Life did. And you're not the reason I'm tired." She was crying now. "I'm afraid," she admitted. "So am I," he said. "But I'm more afraid of walking away." Silence filled the room, heavy and fragile. Then she said the sentence that changed everything. "If you stay," she whispered, "you have to understand something." "What?" "One day, you might have to choose between me and an easier life." Ethan didn't hesitate. "I already chose," he said. She stared at him, tears falling freely now. And for the first time since the accident, since the hospital, since the question of who would ever love her again. Claire believed the answer might be him. Ethan thought choosing love would be the hardest decision he'd ever make. He was wrong. The hardest part came later, when love demanded proof. Life didn't slow down just because they had decided to face it together. Bills still arrived. Noah still had nightmares. Claire still woke some mornings with pain so sharp it stole her breath before she could even sit up. But they tried. Ethan learned things no one had prepared him for. How to lift without hurting her pride or his back. How to recognize the days when she needed help versus the days when she needed space. How to be patient when frustration leaked out of her in quiet, angry silences. And Claire learned too. How to step into a house still haunted by another woman's memory. How to love a child who clung to his father like the world might take him too. How to accept kindness without feeling like she owed something in return. They weren't perfect. Some nights ended in arguments that left both of them exhausted and ashamed. Sometimes Ethan caught himself imagining how easy things might be with someone else, someone who didn't need ramps or planning or explanations to strangers. And every time that thought crossed his mind, it filled him with guilt. Claire saw it before he ever said a word. "You're tired," she said one night as he sank onto the couch, rubbing his face. "I'm fine," he replied automatically. She waited. She always waited. "No, you're not," she said gently. "And it's okay to admit that." He swallowed. "I don't want you to think. I don't think you're weak," she interrupted. "I think you're human." That was the thing about Claire. She didn't demand heroism. She demanded honesty. The real test came 6 months later. No school called in the middle of the day. He'd fallen during recess. Broken arm. Nothing life-threatening, but Ethan left work in a panic, heart racing as old fears clawed their way back. At the hospital, Noah cried quietly, trying to be brave. Ethan sat beside him, holding his small hand, memories flooding back so violently he felt dizzy. Claire arrived an hour later, breathless, eyes worried. "I'm sorry," she said. "The bus." "You don't have to explain," Ethan said quickly. But he saw it then. The looks. The whispers. A nurse hesitated, unsure where to guide her. A parent stared a second too long. That night, after Noah fell asleep with his arm in a cast, Claire stayed unusually quiet. Finally, she spoke. "I watched you today," she said. "At the hospital." Ethan tensed. "Okay. You went somewhere else," she continued. "Somewhere I couldn't reach." He exhaled slowly. "Hospitals do that to me." "I know," she said. "And that's why this matters." She turned to face him, eyes steady but sad. "If something happens to Noah," she said, "you won't have room for me." The words felt like a knife. "That's not true," he said immediately. "It is," she replied softly. "And it should be. He's your son." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Because deep down, he knew she wasn't accusing him. She was protecting him. "I don't want to be the person you have to choose when everything is falling apart," she whispered. "I don't want to be the one who makes your life harder when it's already heavy." Ethan felt tears burn behind his eyes. "You don't make it harder," he said. "You make it fuller." She smiled sadly. "Fuller hurts more when it breaks." 2 weeks later, she asked for space. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just distance. Ethan respected it, even though every instinct screamed to fight it. Days passed. Then weeks. Noah asked where Claire was. Ethan said she was busy. He hated himself for lying. One evening, Laura came over, watching Ethan move through the house like a ghost. "You love her," his sister said quietly. "Yes," he admitted. "And I don't know if love is enough." Laura hesitated. "She's not afraid you'll leave her," she said. "She's afraid you'll stay and hate her for it." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He thought about the question Claire had asked him months ago, who would ever love me now? And he realized something terrifying. He needed her. Not because she filled a void left by his wife. Not because she was broken and needed saving. But because she saw him, really saw him, and didn't turn away. The next morning, he made a decision. Claire was at the park when he found her, sitting near the lake where they'd had their second date. Autumn again. Time had circled back on itself. She looked surprised to see him. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I know," he replied. "But I need you to listen." She folded her hands in her lap. "Okay. I've spent my life trying to avoid pain," he said. "After my wife died, I thought if I controlled everything, who I loved, how much, how close, I could keep my son safe." She watched him carefully. "But safety isn't the same as living," he continued. "And I don't want Noah to grow up thinking love is something you run from because it's inconvenient." Her eyes shimmered. "I can't promise you an easy life," he said. "I can't promise I'll never be tired or scared or overwhelmed. But I can promise you this." He knelt in front of her, voice breaking. "I will never see you as a burden. And I will never resent loving you." Claire covered her mouth, tears spilling over. "What if you're wrong?" she whispered. "Then I'll still choose you," he said. "Every day I get the chance." She cried then, not quietly, not carefully. She cried like someone who had held themselves together for too long. "I don't need you to save me," she said through tears. "I know," Ethan replied. "I need you to walk beside me. However that looks." Months later, life didn't magically become easier. But it became honest. Noah learned how to push Claire's wheelchair, proudly telling strangers, "That's my bonus mom." Claire learned how to let herself be loved without apologizing for it. Ethan learned that grief and joy could exist in the same heart without canceling each other out. One night, long after Noah had gone to bed, Claire sat beside Ethan on the couch. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. He thought for a moment. "No," he said. "I regret the years I spent thinking I wasn't allowed to be happy again." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "You know," she said softly, "I used to think the worst thing that happened to me was losing my legs." He kissed the top of her head. "And now I know the worst thing would have been never letting someone love me because I was afraid," she replied. Ethan closed his eyes, holding her close. The world hadn't been kind to either of them. But together, they had built something stronger than pity, stronger than fear. They had built a love that didn't need fixing. Only choosing. Again and again.